Luke, good to see you. Could you introduce yourself and your business?
Thank you. So Luc Gueriane, CEO of Moorwand. Moorwand is a bin sponsor and EMI, a company that works with fintechs, agents, distributors, whatever you call it, but very, very deeply embedded in payments. I've been with the company since 2019. Originally joined as a CCO. I guess we've got a pretty niche business model, which is quite complex, is constant headaches, is regulatory challenges, scheme challenges. But essentially, we have a lot of the kind of components in terms of licensing, in terms of scheme memberships, in terms of banking relationships, etc., to support fintechs who may not be regulated and want to operate under somebody else's license, or may be regulated and just want a bit of a fast track, outsourced, simplified way of accessing different payment schemes, bank solutions, all the sort of stuff that makes up a sort of regulated product. I say it's a very complex business model because you've sort of got us being glutton for punishments that enjoy the complicated, which nothing we really do is standard. So each customer will have a product, a proposition, functionality, a customer base that they want to be able to take to market. And we in the background have just never really shied away from thinking it can be done. There's a business case, it's legitimate, we can handle this. Yeah. And as a result, we've inherited sort of, I think, something like 10 different issuing processor relationships. We've probably got in excess of 10 different bank providers we have to use for different risk appetites, flows, currencies, so on and so forth.
Yeah.
I won't even go into the number of different tech providers for UX, for KYC, for monitoring. And I guess the clients we work with have such diverse sort of set of headaches or considerations in terms of, let's say, consumer duty. Let's talk about regulatory sort of rules that change, that cross-border payment regulations. So all of this is sort of where we do, I guess, in the most complex form, embedded finance. So this, when people talk about embedded finance or turnkey, there is a way that you can have a relatively generic offering that's a little bit tweaked, adapted, different use cases. We have probably stupidly not done that too much to date. So we've got sort of some very big sort of VASPs, or sort of one of them sort of now has the MiCA license that sort of will work with us, and they look after the crypto side. We can be comfortable with the crypto operation, and we just support them in the fiat and the card side for one use case. Another one might just be automating payment flows for payroll, or automating invoicing, billing, reconciliation, and sort of a little bit more sort of vanilla or with a very specific use case. And yeah, in the background, we have a lot of plates to spin and things to try and get our heads around and support that.
Yeah, definitely. Okay. And do people ever try and do it themselves? Do businesses ever try and do it themselves first and then come to you? How does that usually work?
Yeah, I mean, I think sort of I'm going to comment on my experience sort of both with Moorwand, and I guess sort of Wirecard was sort of where I cut my teeth in this sort of model in their sort of issuing business that went from really sort of prepaid card programs for sort of travel, gift card, things like that, to really sort of seeing the rise of challenger banks, fintechs, and I guess all your N26s, Monzos, and sort of people like that sort of saw value in short-term or mid-term sort of using a sort of sponsor to then sort of develop in-house and actually integrate, whatever you want to call it. So that sort of model is a big part of what we do. It is to say those companies that short to mid-term would see value in using somebody else to speed up the sort of go to market and raising investment and having an MVP, all these types of scenarios that we do have a lot of clients like that. A lot of clients should never really want to do the bits that we do if we get it right, which
Okay.
is sort of using economies of scale, letting them outsource the bits that aren't specific to their business that would just be reinventing the wheel. So this,
Mm.
like in a regulator's view, agency done properly, which is a sensitive topic, and but not stifling them in terms of trying to broad brush everything that would, I guess, destroy a lot of the relevance of what is fintech sort of reason for being, which is edge case. Yeah.
Hmm.
So this sort of question that you've asked is a little bit. Some companies will do it with a view to do it short term, and then sort of bring it in house and not need us anymore.
Hmm.
Others would probably, well, others should, and some will probably never really seek to do the bits that we do that are just
Yeah.
not really adding value and believe me, pretty dull some parts and some big headaches and easier to do when you've got that critical mass or economies of scale. So there's bits that are like that. Others could be just sort of companies that would just take a little bit of what we can offer just as a sort of shortcut or making more accessible to sort of be able to, I don't know, capture a different currency flow or sort of card scheme, for example. Sort of we could
Mm.
certainly go in and say, here's 3 or 4 card schemes that you can have sort of for different customer groups, and
Yeah.
to
Okay.
for them to do that themselves. Like even Barclays would probably sort of regret having to hire teams, train them on a new Mastercard manual or a new manual for a new scheme, and
Yeah.
uh, the niches, nuances.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. So, what was the thought process? Why has Moorwand gone down this route of taking everything on, like, and being the full end to end, like all of these plates to spin? What? How did that happen?
So I think I'll take the blame for that one, uh, on the basis that the company was sort of born with various different use cases, business plans. I think you have to react to market demand. I think I sort of joined the business where really that's all I'd really done is sort of been sponsored sort of agent distributor model for issuing and whatever else. So I guess the network sort of obviously made that a natural sort of initial getting some element of traction in the market.
Yeah.
I think what's happened as well, a lot of companies have either established companies have sort of sought a piece of the action where it sort of sounds very seductive to say you just literally sort of use assets you've already got, hire a few salespeople, and give these fintechs sort of something that either has led to jeopardizing existing business that was stable
Mm.
and really not worth the risk, or it non-stop headaches that just sort of come and hit you, or client sort of failures or new bits of regulation that just sort of keeping up with for this type of the agility or the sort of focus is just something that a lot of companies would have either tried, collapsed,
Mm.
or tried as a sideline and thought, what the hell are we doing? 80% of our effort and risk for 5% of the revenue is not worth it. Yeah. So all of this is sort of maybe where the market demand pulled us in that direction. The other sort of, I guess, model, which we kind of touch upon a little bit, which other companies have done, has also sort of led to us gaining traction with this more complex model.
Hmm.
So if you talk about white label, embedded finance, or turnkey, or plug and play,
Hmm.
it's probably increasingly difficult to do properly.
Mm.
The idea of a generic solution that's being promoted and given to a very broad range of customers and use cases is either going to blindside you and kill you
Mm.
with, I don't know, APP fraud, or sort of a sort of run on sort of a scam, or all these types of things that sort of really you need to know your customer, not from just a ticker box AML KYC point of view. It's really say what is a normal sort of day-to-day activity, what is a a well-known sort of pain point scam that people fall for.
Hmm.
How can the government sort of even consider legislating sort of a standard approach for accessibility for sort of different disabilities that are so sort of broad brush, or vulnerable customers, or consumer use? So all these different sort of things sort of do really make a very generic sort of broad brush offering. It rapidly becomes either irrelevant or not sustainable, and
Yeah.
will sort of collapse. So I think this is sort of really where I think we've gained traction, where a lot of people have been seduced by that sort of easy plug and play, and then sort of realized every sort of edge case or niche or nuance is just sort of, I mean, mainstream, the banks do it very well, let's face it. I mean, they might take a little bit longer to bring that freezer card functionality, or that quirky sort of currency, or whatever it is. They take a bit longer. They've got legacy systems, but they are mass market. They segment the customers and try and do what they can for that group of customers that, I don't know, RBS group, maybe the Coots bit, the sort of NatWest Premium, the sort of, they can segment and they can enhance. But I mean, really, you're still missing the edge case, that what's normal for one person who kind of maybe doesn't really have a permanent address, or maybe doesn't sort of, or maybe has some sort of cross-border flows, or business activity that just would look weird if you didn't tune into it, get close to it. So all of these sort of edge cases sort of, I think, kind of have a need for somebody to tune into, and try and see how you deliver something relevant properly and make it commercially viable as well.
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense. So has that approach then led to a lot of in your sales function? Do businesses come to you? Do you go out to them? How does that?
Yeah. Well, I'd say sort of, you mentioned that earlier, that we'll sort of talk about Moorwand as it is, and sort of plans for this year. I think this is a bit of a pivot. A lot of what I'm saying is really a bit of navel gazing and reflecting and thinking, and keep doing what we're doing, which is, I guess, the past 5-6 years of working with our network, working with card schemes, working with consultants to sort of really see if we can help them with that sort of complex client that's trying to build out sort of an offering, a business plan, or whatever it is. And that's the bit that I'm describing, which, you know, some of it's replicable. We can certainly try and sort of avoid spreading ourselves even more thinly, and try and sort of capture some of the sort of what we replicate, that sort of that use case is just very similar to that. So we are already, I guess, consciously doing that, but that's still very much sort of fintech payments people, sort of payments of buzzword, of the quirk of the innovation, and, you know, really all of that day to day. The sort of turning point, I think, for us is to say that reactive sort of, let's go to more one day, that they like a challenge. Sort of we know that they sort of will try and accommodate to all these different sort of quirks. I think that reactive sort of sales approach of spending most of our time qualifying, unraveling, and scoping, which I think is probably 80-20 in terms of a sales function, business development function we have. Not to mention sort of the existing clients we have, we can do so much more with them as we work closer and closer with what are the pain points, what have we seen work in other areas, what are they excited by, and how we work together. So all of this is sort of really reactive. Sorry, just
No worries.
Sorry about that. So all of this is very reactive. So I think sort of the pivot, and I guess the plans for the rest of this year, and sort of what already started last year, is where we are very consciously sort of looking at sort of the solutions that we can really understand, replicate, scale, build out, enhance directly to that pain point in the market. So it's sort of that customer base that has a set of requirements and functionality that the program manager, we call them, the agent, the distributor, the fintech business, let's say, that's sort of a lot of scoping, qualifying, legwork, and people in the value chain that will improve, will sort of continue to grow and trying to sort of make more streamlined, more innovative, progressive. But equally, the straight to the business customer that you sort of stumble on in the street, or the person that you've got sort of next to you in a restaurant who is sort of that edge case that a mainstream player can't really sort of offer something to. And you know, sometimes it's a very, very crude product they need that isn't really sort of and let's face it, like the person who has the pain point doesn't even sort of use the sort of payment words that we use to get excited by the buzzword, the innovation, or whatever else. So I think that's sort of a little bit of a pivot now, where we've seen there's a big demand, a big gap in the market for certain businesses that have very legitimate payment flows and a fairly unique set of requirements, and are actually going through a lot of pain, facing a lot of friction, and whether they know it or not, sort of paying a lot of cost to actually just do something pretty basic and very legitimate. So if we sort of maybe say that the business now has a very, what I call, sideline that is getting a lot of attention, a lot of investment, to then say, how do we take this product to the business customers using some of the customers that we've already sort of just manually given them a solution to a problem that we are very comfortable with and make a bit of money from.
Yeah, that's okay. So yeah, it's moving away from a lot of disqualification where people are coming through, or overqualification, or just a process where people are coming to you with difficult challenges, or difficult where it will be a difficult solution, and then you're now saying, actually, we want to target the ones that look like the other customers that we've already got, that we can add loads of value to, and then it's going out to them more in more of a proactive way instead of the reactive.
Well done for following my waffle. So yeah, I mean, it's sort of, I'll try and frame it a bit more concisely. I mean, I guess that fintech, that program manager, that sort of agent distributor, whatever you want to call them in the payment sphere, they are targeting a customer base they think they know, want to sort of take a solution to and a product to, and we're sort of trying to get closer to them and their teams who are close to their customers, to then sort of be with the value chain of the schemes, the banks, and everything else to describe the edge case that we're sort of trying to support. So it's if you like, that whole sort of effort dilution and sort of number of people in there, and maybe sort of misrepresentation or sort of dilution of what is the real pain point, for actually something which, you know, honestly speaking, it's quite sort of low margin, sort of when you're actually just offering some capabilities that you can't even sort of guarantee and say, here's what we'll give you and you'll take to your customers, because you're always going to hit that wall that we disagree on. We wouldn't be comfortable with that sort of industry, or we wouldn't, or our partner or bank wouldn't be able to. So this is sort of a very, very I guess not so scalable, or if it's scalable, it's sort of diluted so quickly, versus what I'm describing we're investing in is to say that customer in the street, that non-payments person, that, I mean, we're focused on businesses, but it could be an individual, that you sort of understand sort of the friction they have, the money they lose, the pain point they sort of can't even actually sort of be able to do something very legitimate and simple. If you understand it's replicable, and we say, well, actually, that use case, we know there's sort of a big demographic of people who, I don't know, live offshore and need to receive salaries in the UK and can't prove their address in the UK, and actually have maybe payment flows that sort of would seem a bit excessive. But if you understand that customer group, it's sort of, yeah, it's powerful. So that this is sort of something which, the thinner you spread yourself, and the broader you try and capture sort of different customers with different, you know, price points, pain points, sort of pull factors, the harder it is to really sort of capture the edge case that could feel very niche, but you sort of realize actually sort of it's replicable enough, especially when we've already got sort of all the components, all the ingredients, all the capabilities that we've done and more for all those other cases. I'm very cautious about calling out industries because this is something again which we haven't even decided on industries, and within those industry sectors, it's sort of also sort of what flows and what appetite do we have within that sort of subgroup that we might be going for. But I mean, there's well-trodden paths out there to say, sort of obviously crypto, it was kind of like a few people would dip the toe in, and it was really very premium, and you'd bank the crypto ones and charge them a fortune and they'd be grateful, right? So, but that's sort of like, I think now it's a lot easier to qualify, and sort of especially with Mika, you've really got quite a strong license that's equivalent to the AML controls of an EMI, and now the sort of safeguarding that we saw sort of issues with, that bit sort of is probably sort of going to be a lot easier for everyone to sort of separate the wheat from the chaff and people to work with from a banking payments point of view. That scenario, there's still some that sort of have particular flows that we can sort of support them with. Gambling is another one where sort of really understanding where you're going to be dragged into, I don't know, claims or complaints, or a vulnerable customer who sort of was seduced, and the gambling merchants and all what license they have and which country the marketing into. That again, that's pretty complicated, and I just can't even get my head around sort of these different offshore land licenses that sort of don't promote but offer services in different markets. So that's maybe sort of the ones that illustrate what I'm trying to describe, but they're the ones that maybe have other people that are more advanced and smarter than me sort of tuning into. So there's a few others that sort of excite me, and we've got some sort of test cases that we're playing around with. Legal sector, for example, you've got lawyers who can give you very, very good information and insights on the bit that is more useful than the bit that the bank would be asking for from an ivory tower based on a policy or a framework or a standard, what they think is the standard normal scenario. So this again is sort of one where we've got somebody we hired last year from the events industry. He used to specialize in the legal sector. He's helping us understand a little bit those sort of M&A transactions that would be difficult to bank, or family office sort of pain points of ultra high net worth diva of a client who is incensed that you ask him anything, and sort of his advisors sort of treading on eggshells trying to sort of mollify a suspicious sort of call center worker asking for weird things. So yeah, I'll stop there. It's sort of really, I keep getting distracted by the new one you stumble across in the street, and then sort of think, no, I should go back to that one that we've got.
Yeah. No, fair enough. Okay, that does make sense. So then, if you were, so if we're talking again this time next year, what would make it a successful next 12 months? Would it be, okay, we've found this sector, this is where we are making the best transformations, but also the best profit? Is there anything else on your radar that you're focusing on as well? Okay, I'll let you get back to the podcast in a second, but have you ever had a tier 1 account stop responding to you? And when I say tier 1 account, I mean one of those dream whale clients, the massive deals that change the trajectory of your year, your business, your sales team's performance, and they just go completely silent on you. Well, it happens all the time. And we've got a framework for getting back in with those tier 1s, those whale clients, those winning deals that make or break your year. We can get you back in with them. We can get you back in with 4 of them in 4 weeks, and you only pay us on success. If you're interested, I'll put the link in the comments, but I'll let you get back to the podcast now.
So yeah, I think sort of looking at 2025, I think sort of if we say we started 2025 in a very comfortable place on the basis of we felt we got a good group of customers who we were, kicking ourselves sometimes of thinking, we should be so much more efficient, or it's embarrassing that sort of this happened, or whatever it is. For all our flaws, I think we've sort of, competitors, peers in the industry that I look up to, and would sort of certainly sort of be the first to say sort of more established, professional, and sort of structured than we are. Shared customers, or customers that have moved from them to us have sort of said, actually, like it's refreshing. We're sort of, they value what we do. So I think we've got some relevance in the market. I think we also sort of gained the respect of sort of quite a few of the schemes banks that we work with, that they see sort of it's a low risk portfolio. It's sort of, I think we've done over 5 billion in settlement this year so far. It's sort of big numbers, and you know, I think quite well managed. So I think we're doing things quite well on that side. We're profitable. So that is just refining this, growing a bit, but not sort of trying to sort of 10x sort of 6 months in the size of customer base we have for those agents, distributors, program, fintech people. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's sort of probably improving, refining, sort of introducing more value-added services, and there's improvements to do, which we'll do and continue to do through the course of this year, bring a bit more structure, efficiency. So that's sort of very much the focus of 2025 to date, with in parallel that pivot of what is a basic offering that's making us money, good revenue, very, very manual, and probably has some shortcomings in terms of functionality that we're building into a product directly to the business customer, but with that view of analyzing the different edge cases, subsectors, industries that we want to take an offering to, and specifically anything we automate and any functionality we sort of build into it. Yeah. And I guess the various services and partners that we sort of just bring in to say, if you have interest there, we can sort of bring your sort of useful service to that group of customers. It's a small group of customers. It's sort of not quite there to say this is the one that we sort of focus on for the next 6 months, and this is the priority too. But there's definitely enough traction with the crew product that we're making good money, and there's definitely some good headway on 2 or 3 sort of key verticals, key use cases. Mm-hmm. And in the background, sort of a big build of some pretty powerful functionality to plug pretty much every payment bit that somebody would need as a business into sort of one offering. Nice. And with all the right partners, tech solutions to automate and make it very seamless. But I guess the bit that's not quite there is to say, and what's the route to market for the product that we haven't quite fully figured out the market and the language they use, and we're not going to use payment terms, and we're not going to be asking the questions we used to qualify in a payments world for the person in the street who has no idea about what Swift is, or whether a MasterCard is a different sort of debit to a sort of Union Pay or a Disco. All these different sort of things that we, I guess, geeks of. We're trying to sort of step away from that. Say now the person in the street who knows the pain can explain the pain in their language, and we can tell them how we can fix that pain in their language. How can we sort of help them?
Yeah, no, definitely. I feel that as well. Even on the sales and the like sales and marketing side of things, you can get so caught up in it, of the language that you use, that you communicate with peers with, and then you go to explain it to a customer, and it just so.
That's the thing, and you sort of also see it sort of where you sort of get asked a question about a payments product from somebody, and that's even sort of part of the fact that sort of the man in the street doesn't make a distinction between investment banking and day trading and anything else. But let's just say the travel products, a currency card, mm-hmm. They're not really sure what the spread is. They're not really sure what multi-currency means. All these sort of things that sort of are there, and in reality, sort of you hear sort of, actually, no, I really like that one because the app, just you pressed a button there, or the customer support was just slightly better, or the color of the card was prettier, and you sort of there thinking, wow, we're there bending over backwards to make sure that we're not sort of breaking marketing rules by talking about best FX rates in stuff that we're not even marketing, or giving live rates of market rate at the time of the transaction with the MasterCard rate of the markup. And most of the people using it, they sort of buy and sell rates in a post office, and
Yeah.
So it's sort of they think it's a good deal. Sort of it's yeah, a bit of a paradox, a bit of a sort of well, quirk of yeah, being too inwardly focused. No, I sort of say it sort of loving the industry and everything else, but I think the more events and time I spend with industry peers, the more I start to feel that fintech and payments is becoming a distraction from business, if I dare say.
Yeah, fair enough. Fine. Well, Luke, it's been great to speak. We'll definitely catch up next year, like in 12 months' time, and see how things have progressed. Um, what's the best way for people to get in touch with you, or just reach out to the team? Where should I point people?
Yeah. Well, I mean, we're all on LinkedIn, so sort of we're trying to make an effort this year to be out in events a bit more. We've got sort of inquiries inboxes on the website, and my LinkedIn's sort of very available for anyone. So yeah, I think we're very interested to speak to people in the sort of payment sector that sort of like are curious about the different edge cases. I think we're sort of also sort of getting a good group of people that recognize that on paper we may look like competitors, but we're really not.
Mm,
There's more than enough business for everyone, and I think it's just really sort of putting a hat in the ring of who can do what for who and how we make it viable for everyone. So we've probably got quite a lot of our clients who started off as partners or suppliers that have
okay.
ended up sort of taking up some of our services. So this is also sort of like really an olive branch to anyone who thinks that we're competing with them, because I don't think we're really directly competing with anyone. If we are, they should sort of seek therapy, because they don't want to be just doing all of the stuff that we've spent our time building. And separately to that, I'd really sort of welcome anyone who has knowledge of non-payments industries or use cases that are just struggling, and they want to help us sort of pivot on the sort of getting a set of requirements of a product that somebody else has sort of raised investment to hire consultants to define and build, to get vendors. That person, before they sort of get into the knots of raising investment, everything else, I just am really hungry for that use case that somebody can help us understand, and you know, even better if they've got sort of access to the market to sell to, and if they help us understand it, we can sort of get our heads around it and very quickly qualify if we can find a solution to any problem or pain point that makes money. And
Yeah,
it's probably like 5% of what we've built for everyone else.
yeah, nice. Yeah, definitely. No, that sounds good. Well, yeah, Luke, been a pleasure. I will put the links to yourself and Moorwand in the description. But other than that, that's the pod.
Thank you very much, Mike.